Hey everyone, I'm Josh, and in this video I want to discuss society's weird fascination with body count. I'm sure we've all seen this to some extent. Heck, even if you don't see this online, you probably have experienced it in person while growing up, because there were times where women would get, shamed. There was an S word that would go in front of shamed. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it without getting demonetized, but that was a thing while growing up for the ladies. And then of course for the guys, it's like if you had 0 body count to your name, if you were a virgin, that was not good. You'd get ridiculed for that. And that was all things that people would experience in even high school, which is kind of crazy because one could argue that maybe that's a bit too young, at least for early high school, maybe not so much for later high school. But yeah, these were all things that people were dealing with pretty young. And of course, as you get older, these things are still around. And in fact, I would almost wager that for some people, they kind of get amplified. Like one thing that you see rather commonly in the red pill community is this weird kind of hypocrisy where guys will be kind of celebrated for having really high body counts, and apparently it means that these men have a lot of value to offer, but then they shame women for having high body counts at the same time. So I don't understand how that works, because it's the same concept, but very hypocritical based on who they're applying it to. And then of course, as people get older, men will especially still get shamed if they're a virgin, and women, maybe not so much. There may still be some shame to some extent, but for some reason, a lot of people tend to view that as a good quality. So there's a lot of weirdness going on here, right? Guys get celebrated for having high body counts, women get called a bunch of bad words for having high body counts, and then men get shamed for having really low body counts, whereas women are kind of praised for it to some extent, depending on what environments you're in. And all of this is just kind of crazy when you really think about it, because if you ask me, I know there's a lot of psychology here that I can't ignore, so I can't say that having a high body count is always going to be a good thing, or even that it'll always be a bad thing. It's incredibly nuanced, and you can say the research kind of shows that in general, the higher body counts people have, it could lead to a lot of issues, because think about it, the more people you invite into your life, the more that they'll rub off on you. And if you're inviting a bunch of strangers into your life for an intimate activity, they could impact you to some extent, especially if they do not so great things. Some people can be somewhat abusive in the bedroom, and not everyone will be into that. So of course this can lead to some trauma, but that doesn't mean that everyone with a high body count will experience that trauma. So yeah, I wanted to discuss this because it's a very kind of nuanced topic that many people do not treat in a nuanced way whatsoever. It's usually black or white, the earlier examples of men with high body counts are praised and women with high body counts aren't praised, they're shamed, and it's just all really dumb. I think if you ask me, there's a better way of going about judging people for this, where instead of thinking that it's all black and white, what we should more so focus on is whether or not someone's body count has been a lot of meaningful and deep connections and a lot of beautiful experiences with other people. Because if that's the case, who cares how high it is, right? Because every single one of those experiences was meaningful, impactful, is a beautiful thing for that person, for both of them, to go through, to experience. So I often like to think of the example of let's say you're on vacation and you encounter someone who could very well be a life partner for you, but things just won't work out. The logistics don't add up. Maybe, you're on vacation, so you're not going to be there for super long, and then maybe they're even on vacation too, but you meet them and you just immediately connect with them, but you live in completely different areas and maybe you want different things in life. So there's no way that this relationship could go the distance. But if you're able to connect strongly enough, of course you're going to want to explore that and spend as much time with this person as possible. So inevitably, they will probably add to your body count. Now, is this addition to your body count a bad thing? This is someone you deeply connected with who very well could have been a life partner for you, if only under different circumstances. So there you go. This is why I like to think of it as a nuanced thing, because you could argue that if you have a lot of experiences like that, these are not going to create trauma in your life. They're not going to be bad. So you could very well end up with a higher body count over time if you're able to consistently recreate these kinds of experiences, but they're not bad. So hopefully you can see what I mean here about this topic being very nuanced. But I understand that for the most part, I doubt many people with high body counts are having only these deep connections, because they're difficult to create. If you're able to create these deep connections over and over again, holy crap, does that speak to how impressive of a person you are? So I imagine this isn't super common, because not very many people will be able to do this all the time. These deep meaningful connections with other people are usually on the rare side. But again, if you're able to create a lot of them, that's not a bad thing for having a high body count. And even if you have a low body count, but you have all experiences like this, why would that suddenly mean that if you're a man, you don't have a lot of value to offer other women because, hey, you're creating only meaningful experiences with them? And if you're a woman, well, I already kind of covered how in general it seems like men tend to prefer women with lower body counts. So yeah, it'll be a good thing for her as well. But it's just so fascinating to me the way people treat this nowadays. And I understand you shouldn't really take the way the internet treats things as like the way everyone treats things in person, because they tend to be a bit different, of course. We all understand that. But there's also an aspect of like what people often say online can somewhat generally hold true for a lot of people in the population. And if everyone's saying the same thing over and over again, probably tells you a thing or two about what people actually believe. And yeah, you see a lot of people discussing body count in these ways like this. Men getting praise if it's high, women getting shamed if it's high, and then women getting praise if it's low, and men getting shamed if theirs is low. And it's just dumb. So I think instead of going that route, try to just analyze people based on, have they created a lot of meaningful experiences with other people? And if so, this is probably a good person to pursue an interesting relationship with. And if someone doesn't have a whole lot of experience to their name, that shouldn't matter all that much either. Their personality should matter a lot more. And if you're more experienced in that realm, you can teach them these things, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I know, again, this is more so for like men. Like if a man doesn't have a high body count, he meets a woman who does, she's probably going to view him as like there's something wrong with him, because why hasn't he been able to have a bunch of meaningful experiences with women? And yeah, but maybe we should just try to go out there and be a lot less judgmental of each other and not shame each other over these stupid things until we take the time to actually get to know someone, to see whether or not they're a good human being, and then nothing else should really matter. It shouldn't matter how many people they've been with. And yeah, so I just wanted to discuss this because it's so weird to me the way people tend to treat this thing. And yeah, going back to having zero nuance with it whatsoever. But if you've noticed, it seems like the internet and people nowadays have like zero nuance with anything in general. So it kind of sucks. People are getting really black or white over time, and it's not helping anyone because very few things in life are black and white. Almost everything has some layer of nuance to it, and everybody ignores that nowadays. It's really unfortunate. It's kind of, it's frustrating to see at times because it's making people be a lot less open, and it's creating all this closed-minded nonsense that the world doesn't really need. So there you go. But I'm rambling at this point, so hopefully you got the gist of this video, and hopefully it was helpful to kind of make you have a different way of viewing things, or at least just maybe this is something that some people needed to hear if they fall into one of the categories I mentioned and have been judged for it. Well, hopefully now you can have a different way of viewing it. But that's all I wanted to discuss in this video. I truly hope it was helpful, and if so, feel free to leave a like on it for the algorithm. That really helps me out. Feel free to subscribe for more content like this. And if one-on-one coaching with me is something that interests you, I do have that offered at my website link below. You can fill out that content form, and then we can get in touch with each other and go over how I may best help you. But that's all I have for you guys. Truly hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Arrivederci!